Captain Taixu stood on the bridge of the synthesis Dawn, watching the yellow star grow larger on the main screen. His crew had been traveling for 3 months to reach this remote system. According to their maps, this was just another young world on the edge of known space. Nothing special. Nothing important. Captain, called his science officer, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. We're picking up strange readings from the third planet. Taixu walked over to look at the data. The numbers didn't make sense. These readings show advanced technology. That can't be right. Check the sensors again. The science officer's 4 hands moved quickly over the controls. I've checked 3 times, sir. There are definitely artificial structures down there. And sir, we're getting signals. What kind of signals? Radio waves. And something else. Something our computers can't identify. Taixu felt a chill run down his spine. In his 20 years of exploration, he had never found a world with technology this advanced in such a remote location. Put the signals through the translator. Static filled the bridge, then a clear voice spoke in perfect coalition standard. Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Control. Please identify yourself and state your purpose. The bridge fell silent. Taixu's crew looked at each other with wide eyes. How could these aliens speak their language so perfectly? This is Captain Taixu of the coalition ship Synthesis Dawn, he replied slowly. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We didn't know this system was inhabited. Welcome to our system, Captain Taixu. I am Commander Jiwoo of the Earth Defense Fleet. Would you like to meet in person? We can send a ship to escort you to our station. Before Taixu could answer, his tactical officer shouted, Captain, ship's approaching fast. On the screen, 3 sleek vessels appeared as if from nowhere. They were beautiful, made of some kind of silver metal that seemed to flow like water. They moved without any visible engines, gliding through space like fish through water. How are they moving like that? Whispered the science officer. The lead ship was twice the size of the Synthesis Dawn but looked fragile, like it was made of glass and light. It pulled alongside their ship with impossible grace. Captain Taixu, came Jiwoo's voice again. Permission to come aboard? I think it would be easier to talk face to face. Taixu nodded to his crew. Transport Room 1. Full honor guard. In the transport room, Taixu waited with 6 of his best guards. When the human materialized, he looked normal. Too normal. Jiwoo was tall and lean with black hair and dark eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons or technology. Captain, Jiwoo said with a bow. Thank you for meeting with us. Commander Jiwoo, Taixu replied, trying to hide his confusion. Your ships, how do they move without engines? Jiwoo smiled. Gravity manipulation. We learned to bend space-time a few thousand years ago. It's much cleaner than burning fuel. A few thousand years? Taixu's people had only discovered spaceflight 500 years ago, and they still used chemical rockets for most ships. Your translator works perfectly, Taixu said. How do you know our language so well? We've been monitoring coalition communications for some time. Your languages are quite beautiful, actually. Very logical structure. They walked to the meeting room, Jiwoo's steps light and easy. He didn't seem impressed by the coalition ship at all. If anything, he looked like he was trying not to smile. Tell me about your people, Taixu said as they sat down. How long have you had space travel? Oh, quite a while now. We've been exploring the galaxy for, let me see, about 40,000 years, give or take. Taixu choked on his drink. 40,000 years? Yes, though we've been staying close to home lately. We prefer to let other species develop naturally. It's more interesting that way. But according to our surveys, this system shows no signs of advanced civilization. Your planet looks primitive from space. Jiwoo's smile grew wider. We're very good at staying hidden when we want to. Most species need time to grow without interference. We learned that lesson long ago. What lesson? That helping too much can hurt more than it helps. Young species need to find their own way, make their own mistakes. We just watch, and sometimes we leave little hints here and there. Taixu felt like the room was spinning. Little hints? Mathematical principles. Artistic inspiration. Sometimes we help a scientist have the right dream. Small things. Nothing that changes the natural course of development. You're saying you've been influencing galactic development for 40,000 years? Oh no, Jiwoo laughed. Much longer than that. 40,000 years is just how long we've been using spaceships. Before that, we had other methods. Other methods? Jiwoo stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Captain, how old do you think the galaxy is? According to our scientists, about 13 billion years. And how long ago did the first intelligent species evolve? Teksu thought for a moment. The oldest known civilization dates back about 2 million years. The Zephyrians. The Zephyrians are indeed old. Wonderful people. Very artistic. We helped them discover music theory about 50,000 years ago. You helped them. Their natural development was leading toward a purely mathematical culture. Beautiful, but they were missing something, so we introduced the concept of harmony. Just a small push. Teksu sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. How long have your people existed? Jiwoo turned back to him, and for a moment his eyes looked incredibly old. Ancient. Tired. Captain, what if I told you that every story about ancient visitors your people tell around campfires? What if they were all true? The meeting room felt very small suddenly. Taiksu looked at this ordinary-looking human and realized he might be sitting across from something far older and more powerful than he had ever imagined. We should probably head back to Earth, Jiwoo said gently. There are some people you should meet, some things you should see. If you're ready for them, Taiksu nodded slowly. He wasn't sure he was ready for anything anymore. But he knew his life had just changed forever. Outside the window, the beautiful silver ships waited patiently, like shepherds watching over sheep. And for the first time in his career, Captain Taiksu wondered who was really discovering whom. Dr. Nalvor had studied dead civilizations for most of his life. The Coalition's best archaeologist, he could read the history of a species from broken pottery and scattered bones. When Captain Taiksu asked him to study Earth's history, he expected to solve a simple puzzle. Young species always left clear evidence of their recent development. He was wrong. Standing in the Egyptian desert, Nalvor stared at the Great Pyramid and felt his world crumble. His instruments showed impossible readings. The massive stone blocks had been cut with precision that required technology his own people had only developed 50 years. Ago, Dr. Nalvor, said the human archaeologist beside him. Dr. Yunbi was a small woman with kind eyes and dirty hands from digging in the sand. What do your scanners show? They show that this structure is 12,000 years old, Nalvor said slowly. But that's impossible. Your species should have been using stone tools 12,000 years ago. Yunbi smiled and wiped sweat from her forehead. What if I told you that's one of our newer buildings? Nalvor's four eyes widened. Newer? Come with me. I want to show you something really old. They traveled to a site in Turkey that humans called Göbekli Tepe. Nalvor's instruments went crazy. The stone circles were covered in carvings that showed advanced mathematical concepts. Star charts, technical diagrams. 15,000 years old, Nalvor whispered. But these calculations, they're the basis for modern space navigation. We've always been good with numbers, Yunbi said casually. They flew to Peru next, where Nalvor studied massive stone walls. The blocks fit together so perfectly that he couldn't slide a knife between them. Each stone weighed more than a small spaceship, yet they had been moved and placed with impossible precision. 25,000 years, his scanner reported. In Bolivia, they visited Pumapunku. Nalvor stared at stone blocks cut with laser precision into complex geometric shapes. The craftsmanship was better than anything he had seen in Coalition space. 30,000 years old, he said in disbelief. Unbi led him to a wall covered in strange markings. Can you read these? Nalvor studied the symbols with his translation computer. Slowly, words formed on his screen. His hands began to shake. Instructions for antimatter containment? He looked at Unbi with horror. These are instructions for building antimatter reactors. Basic power generation, she said with a shrug. We needed energy for the heavy construction. They visited China next, where Dr. Young-ho showed him underground chambers filled with crystal formations. But these weren't natural crystals. They were technological devices, powered down but still humming with energy. How old? Nalvor asked, afraid of the answer. About 70,000 years. These are data storage units. They contain the complete records of human civilization up to that point. Complete records? How much history could you possibly have? Young-ho smiled. More than you think. In Africa, Dr. Insu showed Nalvor caves filled with paintings. But these weren't primitive cave paintings. They were star maps, showing the positions of galaxies with perfect accuracy. Some showed galaxies that Coalition science had only discovered in the last decade. 150,000 years old. Nalvor's scanner reported. This is when we first mapped the local galactic cluster, Insu explained. Before that, we were still learning how to build proper starships. Nalvor sat down heavily on a rock. Before that? How long have your people existed? Insu thought for a moment. As a technological species? About 2 million years. As a species that could think and dream? Much longer. They took Nalvor to underwater ruins off the coast of Japan. Massive cities lay beneath the ocean, their buildings intact after hundreds of thousands of years. The architecture was beautiful beyond description, with flowing curves that seemed to bend space itself. These cities, Nalvor said weakly, they're older than the Coalition's oldest records. We built them when the oceans were lower, Yunbi explained. Climate change forced us to abandon them about 400,000 years ago. In Antarctica, beneath miles of ice, they found the ruins of a massive spaceport. Ships that looked like grown crystals rather than built machines sat in perfect preservation. Nalvor's instruments couldn't even guess how old they were. These ships, he whispered, they use technology I don't recognize. Dimensional folding, Young Ho said. We stopped using those about 1 million years ago. Too dangerous. We lost several star systems learning that lesson. Nalvor's mind couldn't process what he was seeing. Lost star systems? Accidents happen when you're learning how to manipulate reality. We got better at it, though. They showed him ruins on every continent, ancient factories that could reshape matter at the atomic level, observatories that tracked the movement of galaxies, libraries carved into mountainsides, filled with knowledge that spanned eons. In Australia, Nalvor found Aboriginal rock art that showed humans working alongside species he recognized from Coalition records. Species that supposedly evolved independently on worlds hundreds of light years away. We helped them get started, Insu said simply. It's lonely being the only thinking species in the galaxy. The final stop was a hidden facility in the Himalayas. Inside, Nalvor found something that broke his understanding of the universe completely. A museum. But not a museum of human history. It was a museum of galactic history. Every species, every civilization, every important moment in the development of intelligence throughout the galaxy. And humans were in every story. We've been keeping records, Yunbi said softly. Someone should remember how it all began. Nalvor stared at a display showing his own species' first steps into space. There in the background of the historical images he could see human observers, watching, recording, protecting. You were there, he said, when my people first left our home world. You were watching. We watch all our children take their first steps, she replied. Children? Unbi's smile was sad and proud at the same time. Dr. Nalvor, what do you call someone who helps a species learn to think? Who guides them toward the stars? Who protects them from dangers they don't yet understand? Nalvor fell to his knees as the truth hit him. Everything he thought he knew about galactic history was wrong. Humans weren't the newcomers. They weren't the primitive species discovering the galaxy. They were the parents, and every other species in the Coalition were their children, growing up and exploring a galaxy their parents had prepared for them. How many others know? He asked. Very few. Children need to believe they've achieved things on their own. It helps them grow strong. Nalvor looked around the museum at thousands of years of careful guidance, protection, and love. What happens now? Now, Yunbi said gently, you decide what to do with the truth. Elder Nari didn't look like someone who had lived for 47,000 years. She looked like a grandmother, with silver hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She sat in a simple chair in a room that felt more like a library than a government building. Please sit down, she told the Coalition delegates. I know this must be confusing for you. Captain Taiksu sat across from her, still trying to understand what Dr. Nalvor had discovered. Commander Jiwoo said you're Earth's chief historian. How old are you really? Nari smiled gently. I was born in what you would call the year 45327 BCE. I volunteered for life extension when I was 30 years old. That was a long time ago. Dr. Nalvor leaned forward. Life extension? We learned how to stop aging about 50,000 years ago. Most humans choose to live normal lifespans, but some of us volunteer to keep the memories alive, to remember the truth when everyone else forgets. How many of you are there? Asked the science officer. About 3,000 memory keepers across the galaxy. We take turns being awake. Right now, maybe 200 of us are active. The others are sleeping until their time comes. Nari stood up and walked to a wall covered in strange symbols. She touched it and the symbols began to glow. Would you like to see? She asked. Would you like to know how it really began? The room filled with light, and suddenly the coalition delegates weren't sitting in chairs anymore. They were floating in space, watching a young yellow star with planets forming around it. "This is Earth 4.5 billion years ago," Nari's voice said around them. "We weren't here yet. Humans evolved naturally just like your species did, but we evolved early, very early." The vision shifted, showing a green world with primitive oceans. Simple life forms swam in warm seas. 2 million years ago, humans took our first steps toward the stars. We were alone. Completely alone. The galaxy was empty of intelligent life. They watched as early humans built their first starships and explored nearby systems. World after world was empty. No cities, no art, no music, no laughter. "Imagine the loneliness," Nari said softly, being the only voice in an empty galaxy. The only ones who could look at the stars and wonder what they meant. The vision showed humans spreading across the galaxy, building cities on dead worlds, trying to fill the emptiness with their own civilization. But we learned something important. Intelligence is precious. Consciousness is rare. And when you find the seeds of it, you protect them. The scene changed to show a primitive world where early mammals were just beginning to use tools. Humans watched from orbit, patient and careful. "We found your ancestors when they were still learning to make fire. We watched them grow, learn, dream. And we realized something beautiful was happening." The coalition delegates watched their own species' early history unfold. But now they could see the humans in the background, always watching, always protecting, never interfering directly. "Why didn't you make contact?" Captain Teksu asked. "Because you needed to become yourselves first. Every species has to find their own path to the stars. If we had landed and said we're here to help, you would have become copies of us instead of becoming who you truly are." The vision showed the development of writing, mathematics, philosophy, and art across dozens of worlds. In every case, humans watched and occasionally left small hints. A mathematical principle carved in stone, a star map drawn in a cave, a story told around a campfire about visitors from the sky. "We gave you breadcrumbs," Nari explained. "Tiny clues that pointed you in the right direction. But every great discovery, every step forward, every beautiful creation, that was all you." Dr. Nalvor watched his own people's history with new eyes. The great library of Nalros, the one that appeared overnight with all the mathematical principles we needed for spaceflight. That was you? "We built it in one night, yes. But the knowledge inside came from watching your mathematicians struggle with those same problems for 300 years. We just organized what you already almost knew." The science officer pointed at the vision. "What about the Mordun philosophical awakening? The time when our entire species suddenly began questioning the nature of existence. Dr. Jamin spent 50 years living among your people as a simple teacher. He never claimed to have answers. He just asked the right questions at the right time. They watched as species after species reached for the stars, each one guided by subtle human influence. Never controlled, never dominated, just loved." "Your parents," whispered Captain Teksu. "Yes," Nari said simply. "The galaxy's first parents, and every thinking species that came after were our children." The vision shifted to show the formation of the coalition. Humans watched from hidden observation posts as their children met each other for the first time, formed alliances, shared knowledge, and began building a galactic civilization together. "This was what we hoped for," Nari said with pride in her voice. "To see you all working together, learning from each other, becoming more than any one species could be alone." "But why stay hidden?" asked Dr. Nalvor. "Why not join the coalition openly?" Nari's expression grew sad. "Because children need to believe they've accomplished things on their own. If you knew we were your parents from the beginning, would you be proud of your achievements? Or would you always wonder if you were really just following our plan?" The room returned to normal, the vision fading. The delegates sat in silence, processing what they had seen. "There's something else," Nari said quietly. "Something you need to know before you decide what to do with this information." She touched the wall again and new images appeared. This time they showed other galaxies, other clusters of stars. We're not the only ones. Intelligence has evolved in other galaxies too. And some of them are not as patient as we are. The images showed massive fleets of ships moving between galaxies. Ships that looked like they were built for war. The Devourers are coming. They consume entire galaxies, turning every world into resources for their expansion. They've already destroyed 3 galaxies in our local cluster. Captain Taiksu felt cold. "How long do we have?" "About 2,000 years. Maybe less. And you think the coalition can stop them?" Nari smiled, and for the first time it wasn't gentle. It was fierce, proud, dangerous. I think our children have grown strong enough to defend their home, but they'll need to know the truth first. They'll need to know what they're really fighting for. Dr. Nalvor understood. You're going to reveal yourselves if you think they're ready. If you think they can handle the truth without losing faith in themselves. The room fell silent again. Outside the window, they could see a city that stretched to the horizon, its buildings reaching toward the stars. Ships moved through the sky like schools of fish, and gardens floated in the air like green clouds. This was what Earth really looked like when humans stopped hiding. We've been preparing for this day for 50,000 years, Nari said. The day when our children would be strong enough to know they have parents, strong enough to face the darkness together. She looked at each of them in turn. The question is, are you ready to help them understand? General Dong Hyun led the coalition delegates through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal but felt warm to the touch. Soft music filled the air, though there were no visible speakers. Every government building in coalition space was designed by humans, he said casually. We've been your architects for thousands of years. Captain Taeksu stopped walking. What do you mean? The Coalition Senate building on Nexus Prime. We designed it to promote cooperation and peaceful discussion. The curves in the walls, the color of the lights, the way sound moves through the chambers, all of it was planned to help different species work together. Dr. Nalvor felt dizzy. You've been manipulating us, while guiding, corrected General Dong Hyun. The difference is important. We never made your decisions for you. We just made it easier for you to make good decisions. They entered a vast room filled with floating displays. Each one showed a different part of the galaxy, with streams of data flowing between them like rivers of light. This is our operation center, the general explained. From here, we monitor every major event in coalition space. Engineer Mi Young appeared beside them, her hands moving through holographic controls. We're tracking about 50,000 critical situations at any given time. Natural disasters, political tensions, technological developments, first contact scenarios. You intervene in all of these? Asked the science officer. Only when necessary, and only in ways that look natural. Mi Young gestured to one display. There's a solar flare building near the Zephyrian homeworld. In 3 days it will disrupt their communications grid, just as they're about to sign a peace treaty with their neighbors. So you'll stop the flare? No. We'll make sure a Zephyrian scientist has a dream about solar weather patterns. Tomorrow morning she'll wake up with an idea for a new type of communication shield. She'll think she invented it herself. Captain Taeksu watched the data streams flowing around him. How long have you been doing this? Since each species first reached space, General Dong Hyun replied. Every critical moment in coalition history has had human involvement. Mi Young brought up historical records. The Great Peace of Centauri, where 7 species agreed to stop fighting over mining rights. We spent 10 years positioning the right people in the right places to make that happen. The quantum leap discovery that gave you faster-than-light travel. Dr. Hendricks published that paper, but the breakthrough came from dreams we sent to 12 different scientists across coalition space. The cultural exchange protocols that let different species share art and music safely. We wrote the first draft, then leaked it to coalition diplomats as an anonymous proposal. Dr. Nalvor sat down heavily. Everything we've achieved was achieved by you, General Dong Hyun said firmly. We just made sure you had the tools and opportunities you needed. Like parents child-proofing a house. We didn't teach you to walk, but we made sure you wouldn't fall down the stairs. Captain Wu Jin joined them, carrying a device that looked like a simple tablet. Let me show you something else. Something that might be harder to accept. He activated the tablet and genetic charts filled the air around them. Double helix structures rotated slowly, with sections highlighted in different colors. These are genetic maps of every coalition species, Wu Jin said. Can you see the similarities? Dr. Nalvor studied the charts with growing horror. These sections here, they're identical across species that evolved on different worlds, millions of years apart. That's impossible unless they were designed that way. Wu Jin finished gently. The silence in the room was deafening. How many? Captain Taeksu asked quietly. 17 coalition species are completely artificial. We created them when their original worlds faced extinction events. Asteroid impact, stellar collapse, plague. We saved them by rebuilding them from genetic memory. The Veltar, Dr. Nalvor whispered. Their original world was destroyed by a gamma ray burst 40,000 years ago. We managed to save genetic samples from 2,000 individuals. We improved their resistance to radiation and gave them the ability to see across a wider spectrum of light. They don't know they're essentially a new species. The Morden philosophical awakening, added Captain Taiksu, when they suddenly became capable of abstract thought. Their original evolution was heading toward pure instinct-based behavior. Beautiful hunters, but they would never have developed true intelligence. We made some adjustments. Mi Young brought up more charts. 34 other species have had minor genetic modifications, usually just to prevent genetic diseases or improve their ability to survive in space. You've been playing God, the science officer said. We've been being parents, General Dong Hyun replied. When your child is about to run into traffic, you don't let them get hit by a car just to preserve their independence. Wu Jin gestured to another set of displays. The technology you use every day, most of it is simplified versions of human tech. We designed it to look like natural technological development. Your faster-than-light drives work by folding space. We've been using that technology for 800,000 years, but we made sure you discover it in a way that fit your mathematical understanding. Coalition computers use quantum processing cores. We invented those 1,000,000 years ago, but we introduced the concept through the dreams of your scientists at exactly the right moment in your technological development. Your weapons, your ships, your medical technology, it's all designed to be exactly as advanced as you need it to be. No more, no less. Captain Teksu felt like he was drowning. So none of our achievements are real. All of your achievements are real, General Dong Hyun said passionately. You built your civilizations. You created your art, your music, your literature. You formed your governments and solved your social problems. You chose to work together instead of destroying each other. We just made sure you had the tools to succeed. The same way parents teach their children to read, by giving them books instead of expecting them to invent writing from scratch. Dr. Nalvor looked at the genetic chart still floating around him. What about our histories? Our creation myths? Wu Jin smiled sadly. We gave you false historical records. Stories about your ancient past that made sense with what you could observe, but weren't true. We thought it would be easier than trying to explain why your oldest artifacts were only a few thousand years old when your species was really much older. The Zephyrian epic of first light, the Morden, tale of the Great Awakening, the Veltar song of the star birth, we wrote them all. You gave us fictional identities, Captain Taiksu said slowly. We gave you mythologies that would help you become who you were meant to be. Every story we told you contained truths about your character, your values, your potential. We just dressed them up as ancient legends. Mi Young brought up images of coalition worlds. Look at your cities. Look at your art. Look at how you treat each other. None of that came from us. That came from who you really are. We guided your development, but we couldn't create your souls. We couldn't make you kind or brave or creative or wise. Those qualities you found on your own. General Dong Hyun gestured to the displays showing the galaxy. This is what we were trying to protect. This beautiful, diverse, creative civilization that our children built together. This is what makes all the deception worthwhile. Captain Taiksu stared at the images of coalition worlds working together, trading, sharing knowledge, creating beauty together. Even if it had all been guided, it was still real. What happens now? He asked. Now you decide, General Dong Hyun said. Do you tell your people the truth? Do you let them know they have parents who love them? Or do you think they're better off not knowing? Outside the windows of the operations center, the real Earth stretched into the distance. Cities that touched the clouds, oceans that sparkled with floating gardens, forests that sang with artificial life. Either way, the general added quietly, the devourers are still coming, and ready or not, it's time for our children to defend their home. The coalition senate erupted in chaos. Representatives from 47 species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate war against humanity. Others called for understanding and patience. A few species had already walked out completely. Captain Taiksu stood at the center of it all, trying to explain what he had discovered on Earth. But the truth was too big, too shocking for most delegates to accept. Lies, roared Commander Velthak of the Veltar military. Humans are trying to make us weak with false stories. They want us to surrender without fighting. Think about what you're saying. pleaded Dr. Maureen of the Morden Philosophy Council. If humans wanted to conquer us, why would they wait 40,000 years to reveal themselves? Because they're clever. Velthak slammed his fist on his desk. They've been controlling us from the shadows, making us into pets, into slaves. The Zephyrian representative songkeeper Nullith played a haunting melody on her throat pipes. When she finished, she spoke in her musical voice. The songs of our ancestors speak of skywalkers who taught us harmony. Perhaps those were not myths, pretty stories. Velthak stood up, his gray skin flushed with anger. While you sing songs, they laugh at how easily they fooled us. Dr. Nalvor tried to show his archaeological evidence, but half the assembly refused to look at it. The other half claimed it was all fabricated. 3 days after Captain Tegsu's report, the Veltar hegemony declared war on Earth. They sent a fleet of 200 ships toward the Sol system, confident that they would find a primitive world defended by simple technology. Admiral Kyung-ho watched the approaching fleet from the bridge of his command ship, hidden behind Earth's moon. His crew was young by human standards. The oldest was barely 300 years old. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might have to fight their own children. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, the Veltar fleet is demanding our surrender. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, calling us false gods and puppet masters. Kyung-ho closed his eyes. He had helped design the first Veltar starships 8,000 years ago. He had watched their species grow from refugees fleeing a dead world into proud warriors, with their own culture and traditions. Open a channel to their fleet. Commander, he said sadly. The main screen showed Commander Velthak, looking exactly as angry as he had in the Senate recordings. Commander, Kyung-ho said gently, please reconsider. We don't want to fight you. Of course you don't want to fight, Velthak sneered. You prefer to control us with lies and manipulation. But we've seen through your deception. We know you're just another species trying to rule the galaxy. Velthak, Kyung-ho said, using the commander's childhood name. I was there when your great-grandmother first learned to fly. I helped design the engines for your people's first colony ship. I've watched your family for 200 generations. Velthak's expression flickered with uncertainty, but his anger quickly returned. More lies, more attempts to make us feel small. I'm not trying to make you feel small. I'm trying to make you understand how proud we are of what you've become. Proud? Velthak laughed bitterly. You created us. We're not real. We're just genetic experiments. You think a parent's love is less real because they chose to have children? You think your achievements mean nothing because someone helped give you life? We earned nothing. Everything we have, you gave us. Kyung-ho's voice grew firm. You earned your honor through your choices. You earned your courage through your actions. You earned your place in the galaxy by being worthy of it. We gave you the opportunity to become great, but greatness itself, that came from within you. I don't believe you, Velthak said, but his voice was quieter now. Then attack, Kyung-ho said sadly. But know that even if you destroy every human in the galaxy, it won't change the truth. You are our children and we love you no matter what you choose to do. Velthak cut the transmission and ordered his fleet to attack. The Veltar ships opened fire on Earth with everything they had. Missiles, energy beams, gravity bombs, and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Nothing happened. Earth sat peacefully in space, completely untouched. The attack simply vanished before they could reach the planet's surface. Impossible, Velthak shouted. All weapons focus fire on their ships. But there were no visible human ships to target. Just empty space around Earth. Then the space around the Veltar fleet began to shimmer. Massive shapes appeared. Not ships, but structures so large they defied imagination. City-sized platforms that had been invisible until now. Each one was beautiful, flowing like sculpture rather than built like machinery. Dr. Sojin's voice came from everywhere at once, gentle but impossibly powerful. Please stop this, children. You're going to hurt yourselves. One of the Veltar ships fired directly at the nearest human platform. The energy beam simply bent around it, dissipating harmlessly into space. Your weapons can't hurt us, Sojin explained patiently. We've had a very long time to learn how to protect ourselves. But we don't want to hurt you either. Then fight us, Velthak screamed. Stop treating us like children. But you are children, Sojin replied sadly. Our children. And no matter how angry children get, parents don't shoot them. More human platforms appeared throughout the solar system. The Veltar fleet found themselves surrounded by technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Weapons that could reshape reality itself. Defenses that made their attacks meaningless. But the humans didn't fire back. "This is why we stayed hidden," Admiral Kyung-ho said, his voice broadcast to every ship in the Veltar fleet. "Not because we were afraid of you, but because we were afraid of this moment. The moment when our children would realize how different we really are. You could have been honest with us." Velthak's voice cracked with emotion. "And then what? Would you have felt proud of your achievements, knowing we could have given you better technology at any time? Would you have felt like real people, knowing we could solve all your problems with a thought? We wanted you to grow up believing in yourselves, to know that your strength, your intelligence, your courage, all of that came from within you." Commander Velthak stared at the impossible technology surrounding his fleet. Ships that could have destroyed his entire armada without effort but chose not to. Parents who could have been gods but chose to be guardians instead. "What do we do now?" he asked quietly. "Now you choose," Admiral Kyung-ho said. "You can accept that you have parents who love you, or you can reject us and go your own way. Either choice is yours to make. And if we choose to reject you, then we'll be sad, but we'll respect your decision. We'll go back to watching from the shadows, protecting you when we can and hoping that someday you'll understand. And if we accept you, then we face the coming darkness together, as a family." The Veltar fleet hung motionless in space, surrounded by wonders beyond their imagination. In the distance, Earth waited patiently, home to parents they had never known they had. And in the depths of space, far beyond human sensors, something vast and hungry turned its attention toward their galaxy. The Devourers had noticed the commotion. Time was running out for humanity's first lesson in parenting on a galactic scale.